She said I was a good man, just not exciting anymore. So I let her watch me become the man every woman notices, except her. Hey everyone, we're just beginning this journey. So please consider helping us reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Thank you. Now, let's get back to the story. The aroma of dark roast coffee usually wrapped around me like a comforting blanket each morning, a familiar ritual. Today, it felt like a thin shroud. I stood by the kitchen island, tracing the rim of my favorite mug, the ceramic warm beneath my fingertips. Outside, the world was still waking, a soft gray light filtering through the window. Inside, the quiet hum of the refrigerator was the loudest sound until Amelia's voice, bright and casual, drifted in from the living room. She was on the phone, as always, with Brenda. "Oh, same old, she said, with a little laugh, light as a feather. "He's fine. I love him, of course." My chest tightened, a strange premonition. I paused, mug halfway to my lips. But she continued, and that single word landed like a stone in a still pond. "I'm just not in love with him, He's just become so boring." The world tilted. The coffee, moments ago a source of comfort, now tasted like ash. Boring. The word echoed in the sudden, deafening silence of my mind. It wasn't a shout, and it wasn't an accusation. It was a casual dismissal, a shrug of the shoulders dropped into a conversation with a friend. My wife, the woman who shared my bed, my life, and my name, thought I was boring. And not just boring, but she wasn't in love with me. Just loved me, like a well-worn armchair, perhaps, or a reliable but unexciting car. A cold wave washed over me, chilling me to the bone despite the warmth of the coffee. My hand, holding the mug, trembled almost imperceptibly. I didn't move, didn't gasp, didn't drop the mug, though a part of me wanted to just let it shatter, to make a noise as loud as the one that had just ripped through my carefully constructed reality. She kept talking, her voice a distant drone now, discussing Brenda's latest dating woes, oblivious. I just stood there, pretending to be absorbed in the steam rising from my cup, my world quietly imploding. The morning continued, a grotesque pantomime of normalcy. She walked into the kitchen, her hair still slightly mussed from sleep, a soft smile playing on her lips. "Morning, sleepyhead," she chirped, reaching for the toaster. "Coffee smells good." I grunted, a non-committal sound, and took a deliberate sip. My gaze followed her, a new lens suddenly applied to everything. Was that a flicker of boredom in her eyes as she spread jam on her toast? Did her smile seem a little too practiced? I watched her chew, her jaw working, and the small movements of her fingers as she wiped a crumb from her lip. Every gesture, every glance, was now filtered through those two devastating sentences. She loved me. I was boring. "Anything interesting planned for work today?" she asked, her voice light. "Just the usual," I mumbled, turning to rinse my mug, needing to escape her direct gaze. The usual? Was that what she saw? A man of routine, predictable, a dull hum in the background of her vibrant life? A quiet rage began to simmer beneath the ice in my veins. Not a rage directed at her. Not yet. A rage at myself. For becoming this boring man. For not seeing it. For allowing it. Days bled into weeks, each one stretching the silence between us thinner, more taut. We still shared meals and still exchanged pleasantries about our days. But the easy intimacy, the spontaneous touch, and the shared laughter that used to punctuate our evenings had evaporated. It was replaced by a hollow echo. I found myself watching her from across the living room, a book open on my lap, my eyes tracing the lines of her profile as she scrolled through her phone. A stranger in my own home, observing a stranger. "How was your day?" she'd ask, her eyes still on the screen. "Fine," I'd reply, the word flat, devoid of emotion. She'd hum, and that would be the end of it. No follow-up questions, no shared stories. Just the space between us, vast and growing. The emotional wall was invisible, yet as solid as concrete. I felt it, a constant pressure against my chest. It was a strange kind of liberation, too. If she wasn't in love with me, if I was boring, Then what was there to lose? The thought, once terrifying, now felt like a spark. A tiny, dangerous ember. One Tuesday evening, instead of heading straight home, I drove past our usual route. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The gym. I'd walked past it 1,000 times, seen the bright neon sign, and seen the figures moving inside like silent dancers. Today, I pulled into the parking lot. The air inside hit me, a blast of cool recycled air, smelling faintly of sweat and disinfectant. A young woman with a clipboard smiled at me from behind the counter. "First time?" she asked, her voice cheerful. "Yeah," I said, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. "Just looking to sign up." The paperwork was quick. My hands felt clumsy as I filled out the forms, my old, comfortable identity shedding like a second skin. I started small. 30 minutes on the elliptical, my legs protesting, my lungs burning. Sweat trickled down my temples, stinging my eyes. Then 10 minutes with the lightest dumbbells, my arms shaking, muscles screaming in protest. I looked at myself in the mirror, a pale, soft reflection staring back. Boring. Not anymore. Not if I had anything to say about it. The quiet rebellion had begun. "Hey, Mark," Kevin from accounting said, leaning against my cubicle wall a few weeks later. He scratched his chin, a thoughtful look on his face. You look different." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, yeah, I don't know. Like you've woken up or something. Got a new haircut." He peered closer. I shrugged, a small smile playing on my lips. "Just getting more sleep, I guess." He nodded slowly. "Well, whatever it is, it suits you." The compliment, small as it was, felt like a jolt of electricity. It wasn't a grand declaration, but it was notice. Someone else had seen the shift, the subtle changes. My clothes, once loose and shapeless, now fit a little better. My shoulders were a fraction straighter. The quiet hum of the gym, the rhythmic thump-thump of the treadmill, and the satisfying clink of weights had become my new soundtrack. I was still boring at home, but somewhere else, I was becoming something else. Someone else. One evening, after a particularly grueling session at the gym, I decided not to wait for Amelia. She often worked late or went out with Brenda. Tonight, I made myself a meal. A real meal. Not just a reheated casserole or a quick sandwich. I chopped garlic, the pungent aroma filling the kitchen. Sautéed chicken breast, golden brown, sizzling in the pan. Steamed broccoli, bright green. I plated it carefully, a small, satisfying arrangement on the white ceramic. I sat down at the kitchen table, just for myself. No TV, no phone. Just the food, the quiet, and me. The first bite was simple but delicious. I chewed slowly, savoring the flavors. And then, a genuine smile spread across my face. A real one, not a polite one, not a forced one. A true smile, born of quiet contentment. It had been so long since I felt that. Just for me. The reconnecting with old friends started subtly. An old college buddy, Dave, texted me out of the blue. "Hey man, long time no see. Grab a beer sometime." My initial impulse was to decline, to default to the boring routine. But then I remembered the gym, the solo dinners, and the quiet awakening. "Yeah, absolutely," I typed back. "When are you free?" The pub was loud, the air thick with the smell of hops and fried food. Dave was just as I remembered him, boisterous and full of life. We talked for hours, reminiscing about college antics, laughing until our sides ached. "Remember that time you tried to serenade Professor Jenkins with a kazoo?" Dave roared, slapping the table. "Oh God, I'd completely forgotten about that." I chuckled, tears pricking my eyes. My laugh, deep and hearty, felt unfamiliar, yet wonderfully natural. It had been years since I'd laughed like that. Years. Amelia never found my old stories funny. Too boring, I supposed. You seem lighter, Mark," Dave said, taking a long swig of his beer. "Good to see you smiling again." I just smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile. He didn't know the half of it. Amelia noticed. It started small. A lingering glance when I walked into a room. There was a pause in her conversation when I came home from the gym. My shirt damp, a healthy flush on my face. "You've been going to the gym a lot," she commented one evening, her voice hesitant. Her eyes, usually so distant, were actually on me. "Yeah," I said, not elaborating. "You look good," she added, almost a whisper. I just nodded, a polite acknowledgement. No reciprocal compliment. No warm smile. Just the truth, delivered flatly. The words, once so desperately desired, now felt hollow. Too little, too late. Then came the attempts. The first one was subtle. We were watching a movie, something I'd picked out. She shifted on the couch, inching closer. Her hand, hesitant, reached out and settled on my thigh. Her fingers, light as butterflies, began to trace patterns on my jeans. My stomach did a strange flip. For a moment, a flicker of the old U.S. But then I remembered the phone call, the casual dismissal, and the word boring. My muscles tensed beneath her touch. I didn't pull away, not overtly, but I went rigid. The air around me grew cold. After a moment, her hand stilled, then slowly, carefully withdrew. Are you okay? She asked, her voice soft, tentative. Just tired, I murmured, my eyes fixed on the screen. The flickering images on the TV offered a convenient escape. She sighed a small, wounded sound and shifted back to her side of the couch. The chasm between us, which I had carefully and meticulously built, now felt insurmountable. One night, after a particularly long silence over dinner, she finally broke. Her voice was thin and reedy, as if she hadn't used it properly in days. I miss you, Mark, she said, her eyes welling up. A single tear tracked a path down her cheek. I looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time in months. Her face was pale, her expression fragile. The old Mark, the boring Mark, would have rushed to comfort her, to reassure her, to pull her into his arms. But the new Mark, the one who had spent months rebuilding himself brick by painful brick, hesitated. He felt nothing. No surge of affection, no pang of regret. Just a quiet stillness. I know, I said, my voice calm, almost detached. I miss you too, the old you. Her eyes widened, brimming with unshed tears. What do you mean? This was it, the talk I never wanted to have. The words, once trapped, now felt ready to burst forth. I took a deep breath, the air in the room suddenly thick. I overheard you, Amelia. I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil that had raged within me for months. On the phone with Brenda, you said you loved me, but you weren't in love with me, that I was boring. Her face crumpled. A small gasp escaped her lips. Oh, Mark. No, I didn't mean it like that. Didn't you? I asked, my voice still quiet, but with an edge of steel. Because those words, those exact words, they changed everything. They were a knife, Amelia. A quiet, casual knife, twisted in a wound I didn't even know I had. You should have told me you were unhappy. You could have been honest. Instead, you mocked me, made me sound like some pitiful, boring husband to your friends. That broke something in me, and I'm not sure I can bring it back. She shook her head, tears streaming freely now. I was frustrated. We were in a rut. I didn't mean you were boring as a person. I meant our life, our routine. I was just venting. You know how Brenda gets me wound up. She reached for my hand, her fingers trembling. Please, you have to believe me. I looked at her hand, so close, so familiar. I believed her. I did. I believed she was frustrated. I believed she was venting. I believed she hadn't meant to inflict such a deep wound. But belief didn't change the truth of the words or the way they had reshaped my world. It didn't change the months of quiet despair, the slow, painful process of rebuilding myself from the ground up. I believe you, I said, my voice flat. I didn't take her hand, but it doesn't change what I heard, or how it made me feel, or what I've become because of it. She tried again. She cooked my favorite meals, dressed in lingerie, and suggested dates. She bought new perfume, a sweet, floral scent that filled the air whenever she was near. Let's go out tonight, just us, she'd say, her voice hopeful, her eyes pleading. I went along. We went to a fancy restaurant. She laughed a little too loudly at my jokes. She touched my arm, her fingers lingering. I smiled politely, ate my food, and made polite conversation. I was courteous, attentive, and everything a good husband should be. But I wasn't pretending anymore. There was no spark, no yearning. The well was dry. I saw her desperation, her fear, and her belated attempts to reclaim what she had so carelessly discarded. And I felt nothing, just a quiet certainty. The envelope was plain, white, and rested on the kitchen counter. Next to it, my wedding ring, gleaming dully in the morning light. I had packed my bags the night before, quietly and methodically, while she slept. I made myself a final cup of coffee, the aroma, now, just a scent, devoid of its former meaning. The house was still, the pre-dawn lights soft and gray. I took a deep breath, the air cool in my lungs. I hadn't lashed out. I hadn't screamed. I had listened, withdrawn, and rebuilt. My eyes swept across the familiar kitchen, the living room beyond, and the life I had shared here for so long. It was no longer mine. Or rather, I was no longer hers. I had chosen myself. I picked up the envelope. Inside was a single letter, brief and to the point. No accusations, no anger, just the quiet truth. I didn't need to explain everything. She knew. She'd known for months, even if she hadn't admitted it to herself. As I walked out the door, the cool morning air brushed against my face. The world outside was waking up, vibrant and full of possibility. I didn't look back. Later, in a small, quiet apartment miles away, I sat at a makeshift desk, a new journal open before me. The pages were crisp and unblemished. I picked up my pen, the weight familiar in my hand. I wrote a single line, the words flowing effortlessly, a final, quiet truth. Sometimes love isn't lost. It's outgrown.